What's up, what's up, what's up? It's your man with a plan, Jacobo, and welcome to the best episode ever. You ever felt like the barriers in your life are just insurmountable? Well, today we're going to uncover the secrets to breaking free and finding the solutions from within. Today on the Collective Podcast, we're joined by a beacon of hope, a man whose laughter lights up rooms and whose silent moments of reflection really speak volumes. Stay tuned as we explore the depths of men's development, the art of turning life's mud into gold, and the power of a grateful heart. We're diving deep into a journey of a man who leads with empathy, understands the essence of genuine leadership, and has a heart that beats for the betterment of others. Joining us today is Dr. Oliver T. Reid, now not just a name, but a symbol of resilience, faith, and genuine connection. In a world where genuine leadership is a rarity, Dr. Reid stands out, wearing his heart on his sleeve and always ready to lift others up. I've always believed personally that life's challenges are not barriers, but they're stepping stones. And today, with Dr. Reid, we'll discover on how to embrace every moment, let it be muddy or clear, and find the joy within. Get ready to be inspired, get ready to break free, and to truly enjoy the life that you're living. All right, guys, from beginning to end, let's dive in.
What's up, what's up, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Collective Podcast. I'm sitting here today with Dr. Oliver T. Reid, and we're going to be jumping into your intro in just a second, but really quick before that, let me throw an introduction and a thanks out there to His Kingdom Keys for providing us this amazing space, and on top of that, Flare Encounters for the entire setup, as well as Give Soap, where they're matching every purchase with a purpose and doing an amazing job out there, especially within the homeless community in Los Angeles, and also my boy Victor Angel. It's his birthday tomorrow, so I just wanted to throw a quick happy birthday out there to him because he's an amazing guy and just helping us do all this stuff. But let's jump into it with Dr. Oliver T. Reid. Now, he's coming out here from I'm a Solution Consulting Firm, and we're going to be talking to him about his life, what really makes him happy in what he does, and the people that he's been helping along the way, because he's been doing an amazing job. And Doc, I just want to say thank you for jumping on the Collective Podcast with me today. I really appreciate you being here. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and let you take it away, man. How are you doing today?
And I'm doing good, Jacobo. I'm excited to be in L.A. And listen, it is amazing to be on the set with you. Shout out to my boy Victor Angel, and it's been a phenomenal time. But I'm just happy to be here, man, impacting lives one story at a time. One of the things I do is I always say that 2 things you need to do before you leave the planet Earth, and that means to write your story. I believe everybody inside has a story inside of them. So along the way, I always say, hey, listen, McDonald's doesn't worry about Ruth Chris, and Ruth Chris doesn't worry about McDonald's. They all have their secret sauce. So I believe your story that God has given you inside, based on what you do, based on what you've been through in your life, overcome pitfalls, setbacks, delays, success, is all a part of that secret sauce. So a lot of people tell me, hey, I don't have a story. And I'll beg to differ on the other side. Every man, every woman has a story to tell, and they have their secret sauce and their solutions that they all get out of their trials, tribulations. And so that's one of the things I encourage people to do, one story at a time, one word at a time, one book at a time.
That's huge, because that right there is actually the premise to my podcast as well, right? And I want the listeners all to know and understand that, because everybody does have a story. You're exactly right. Like when it comes down to, you know, the successes that are out there, It really comes down to a lot of action, right?
Yes.
Like it's like about getting out there, really putting your name out there, putting your mark and taking that shot. And really just kind of having that opportunity to really take that shot, and just recognizing that, like you said, everybody's got their own personal secret sauce.
Yes.
And there's no reason why your secret sauce is any better than my secret sauce.
Right.
It's just a matter of, you know, going to the place where you're really valued.
Yes.
So as far as a lot of the stuff that you've been doing, man, like what is it that you've been doing as far as to really highlight the stories of a lot of those young men, young women, and you know, just the people that you've found in your life?
Well, I've helped everybody from NFL athletes to janitors, to CEOs, to pastors, to bishops, to people, just elderly people who just want to tell their story and leave a legacy. And so I help entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches just really do that, write about the things that they already do. So some people have built businesses, they built multi-million-dollar businesses, or if they're just getting started, they have a blueprint, they have a plan, Jacobo, right? So I'm like, hey, if you took the time to put this plan together, you already have a story deep inside of you already. And guess what? People are Googling and searching for help. For example, there's people Googling right now on how to run a podcast, right? So if you write the book on podcasting, why not do that? So while they're searching, they're like, hey, guess what? This person's book pops up, and you can help somebody do something that you aspire to do. So cutting people's time in half is what I like doing, being able to show them a way to be able to get their voice out. I always say this, you ought to write your story while you're alive rather than people skim over the highlights when you're dead.
That's huge. Because a lot of, like, I was just actually sitting down with someone today,
Yeah.
and I was talking with them, and it was just kind of, it's really crazy that you just brought that up, man, because it is true. Because when you're gone and you put it perfectly, they're skimming over the highlights of your life, and you can either have these amazing highlights, right, or you can have the one highlight that ends up just demolishing all the other good stuff that you did. Right. And so it's like you have an opportunity right now to write the story the way that you want to write it, the way that you want to leave it, and the way that you want people to remember you.
Yeah. And that's the amazing part, because I would rather write my story while I'm alive, right? Because my grandchildren won't have to figure out who their grandfather was, right? My great-great-grandchildren won't have to worry about who their grandfather was. And I'll be able to narrate that and tell that story from my perspective, right? Because if we don't do that, people can always narrate and edit your story. They can tell the person this is how Oliver was, right? But I've written over 40 books, and I've helped people on 4 continents write books. So there's going to be a lot of material. So if they have to change the story, they're going to have to change 40 stories, 40 books. They're going to have to do a whole lot of work to change who I really am. So I want to leave my imprint on the world. And guess what? A book never gets old. The number one anthology in the world is the Bible. And I always say this, and I hit him over the head with this Jacobo all the time. I say, even God had a book. Believe it or not, even God had a book. What's your excuse?
Right. Because especially, man, you know what? You nailed it right there on the head, right? It's like, what's your excuse? Because honestly, there's so many tools out there now to write books. And I'm not even, we're in the age now of AI, right?
Yes.
Like you have artificial intelligence. You're able to write a book in like 10 minutes if you really want to just plagiarize the heck out of everything, right? But on a reality, you're able to get that structure and do all those different things, work with different coaches such as yourself.
Yeah.
And there's so many tools out there and so many opportunities. It's like, you're right. What's your excuse and why aren't you doing it?
Yes.
So
it took me, one of the things that in 1995, I had a suicide attempt. And it was on Christmas Day, 1995, where everybody was celebrating Christmas. I was battling depression, inner city kid in the project, who didn't understand how to express his emotions. I always was writing, found myself writing hip-hop. I was an aspiring rapper, so I was writing hip-hop, I was writing poems, but I didn't see it as an outlet. So I was carrying all this anger, being rejected from my father, and then tried to commit suicide on Christmas Day, couldn't die. God restored me. And I realized after that, there was something that he wanted me to do, some purpose. And what that purpose has been since then is write about my pain. See, a lot of people don't want to talk about the hard stuff, the real issue, the sticky stuff, but people are really looking for people who can be real and tangible, that can show their wounds, they can show their stripes, or put it in street terms, show their street cred, like really show who they really are. What better way to express it in writing? I have people all the time, since I've shared my story, hit me up, DM me, people that I don't even know from all over the world, and say, hey, I was about to kill myself, but you were talking about this in your book. You were talking about how you overcame depression, and I can do it too. And guess what? They don't care what my past was. They don't care what I'm going through. They care about if I have a solution. And I always tell people, if you can be on the other side of the equal sign, let me back up. You remember, I don't know if you ever was in school. The other side of the equal sign.
The other side of the equal sign, man. I mean, I've never heard a book or anything like that of it, but like the way that you just put that, you're being the solution. Now, that makes a lot more sense, right? Yeah. I am a solution consulting firm, right? So like you're on the other side of that equation. Yes. You're no longer the variable of the problems, right? You're the solution there. And that's huge.
Yep.
Because I mean, and you're exactly right, man. There's so many people out there that are battling things like depression and suicidal thoughts and stuff of that sort, especially coming out of situations like COVID, right? And then on top of that too, you have, situations where you got massive amounts of inflation going on right now. You have people in poverty. You got individuals that we're actually going to get to see tomorrow, right? That are like in homeless situations. And it's crazy because a lot of people don't want to talk about those wounds, right? And I mean, you're looking at a person right now where it's like, yeah, I got wounds myself, right? And it's like there's days where you're like, man, I just want to crawl into bed and not get up out of bed or anything like that too. So how is it, best? I mean, you started writing about that depression and stuff. How do you battle that on a daily basis now?
Yeah, it's a day-to-day battle. One of the things I can be transparent about is on the plane. One of the biggest things that hit me was this year was very hard for me because I had a business partner who really had some things that go wrong. They were pulled out the deal. I was out, several thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. And I began to seek revenge in my mind and in my heart. I was very, very angry, even flying out here. Now, this happened about a year ago, but I was still like, God, I could use this money now to help people. But I remember being homeless as a kid. I worked 20 years as an executive, ran nonprofits as a CEO for nonprofits, dealing with homelessness. But I would tell them all the time in board meetings that it was more than just a job for me because I was in the car with my mom as a 5-year-old homeless. So it hit different for me. And so what I do now is I channel that energy, I channel that pain that I face and replace it. A lot of times we want to sometimes waddle in a pity party, or we want to be able to say, hey, because we go through pain. And I always say this, Jacobo, like pain doesn't owe you a pity party, but it does owe you something. And what we fail to do a lot of times in our pain is to go back and find the purpose or the profit in our pain. So now what I do is the pain that I face, I plant a different seed. Like life gave me all these different things, and then how do I change it and how do I counteract it? I have to plant something different. And so now being able to help people write their story is not just for therapy. It also is the #1 lead generator in the world. It's still a book. If you see any speaker, Tony Robbins, T.D. Jakes, Miles Monroe, anybody you see out there, they're still doing one thing, and they're still releasing books. John Maxwell, the list goes on and on. Why do they do that? Because each time they release a book, it's therapeutic or it can be informational, but they get into a different target audience that generates a lead. So I always tell a beautician, if you're a beautician already, write the book on doing hair. If you're a chef, write the book on being a chef. If you're a podcaster, write the book on doing a podcast. Why? Because there's automatic leads, but then tie it into a story. I was looking at something you mentioned, AI. And AI is good, but I always say AI doesn't have a soul. It only feeds from your brain. It only feeds what you said. Like you said, it plagiarizes, it remembers what you put in. So it's a good starting point, but you have to be able to feed that and cultivate that story within you. One of the things they said that will separate you from AI, and this is powerful, the only thing that will separate, we can't compete with it, right? It's lightning fast. Like you said, you write a book in 5 minutes.
I mean, I've literally used it, man, and you're done with tasks like that. And it's crazy. It'll break down slideshows for you. It'll break down, step by step on how to build a business, like all kinds of different stuff. And so, when you're trying to compete with it on an intellectual basis, right, and gathering the information, it's almost like you're going to lose every time unless you have some secret stash of information, right? Yeah. But like what it doesn't replace is that soul.
That soul. And you are that story. And one of the powerful things that I was at a conference and a guy was speaking, a motivational speaker, and he said, what's going to separate us going into the millennium, going into who we are, is storytelling. It's going to set you apart in this day and age between A and I. Like with AI, one of the biggest things that will differentiate is the storytelling aspect in business. If you want to stay relevant in business going into these years to come, it's going to be impactful stories like Give Soap and the different things that we're going to be doing this weekend that really separates you from the next competitor. And so people who don't have books, people who don't have information, people who don't have documentation, people who are not great with sharing their stories. You see it all the time probably in your field. People do great work, but they don't know how to narrate that story to tell people what they're doing.
Right, because the narration of that story, that storytelling, like you said, is going to be the thing that really sets them apart. And it's because of the fact that really helps to illustrate that soul.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that's crazy about it, because when you really look at it, a lot of people, and I've seen it, as AI comes out, people are like, let me create a book, let me do this, let me create a newsletter, a pamphlet, or anything like that. And then they all start to look the same.
Yeah.
Right? They start to look very similar to each other. They start to do all these things where it's like, I think I saw that in a different one or anything like that. And it's like, well, that's because of the fact that everybody's using it now to try to just like do the same exact thing.
Yes.
When it's like the differentiator is the stuff that you're doing out there.
Yes.
You're getting out there. You're helping people narrate their story, narrate their life, know and understand that everybody has a purpose within their story. And like you said too, that pain does owe you something, right? It's like, let's turn that pain into profit.
Yes.
And I'm not talking profit in like just a monetary sense, but like I'm talking about profit as in like, dude, what are you doing with that pain that's going to help inspire somebody else, help somebody else, rise from the ashes, become that phoenix and become something different and really start to shine. And you're doing that stuff, man. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. And it helps me because each day, like I was saying earlier, when I started to get into the funk, because one of the things as men especially, we're taught to feel what we don't say and say what we don't feel by nature. From the time we were kids, like, suck it up, tough up. Hey, we don't get rewarded for falling down. We get rewarded for getting up, right? Or being the strongest. And so we have that silent frustration I talk about all the time when I'm dealing with that subject of men screaming with their mouth closed. So a lot of times we're yelling, but we can be very passive in our approach. And a lot of times people don't key into our body language, our posture, and especially our significant others. It's sometimes hard for them to read us as men, because you ask us how our day was, we're going to say, yo, it's cool.
It's cool.
It's cool.
We got our job done.
We got
That's it, right? Like, it's like, I finished the task at hand. It's cool. Meanwhile, I'm over here, I'm eating all my feelings away. I gained like 35 pounds and stuff. And then people are like, oh, but you've been saying it's cool. And it's like, yeah, that's because I can't actually tell you my feelings.
Yeah, or I'm drinking, or, I may not be saying anything. I just get missing. There's so many men I talk to and talking to their wives or significant others, like, I don't know what's wrong with my husband. I don't know what's wrong with my boyfriend. He just didn't come back. I don't know where he is. He didn't come home last night. But I'll tell him it's a build-up. Everything builds up. And so from that standpoint, I use writing, and I tell people therapeutically to use writing to express yourself. If you're not journaling your thoughts, I would say that's number one. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you're like, hey, if you go to any therapist, and I did a lot of counseling and also counsel myself, right? First thing they tell you to do is journal. I don't know if you ever saw a therapist, they're going to say, hey, journal.
Right.
Why?
Get out there, journal.
Because what you can write, what you can see, what you can say, a lot of times you can't say from here. You can say from maybe writing it down or recording it. But either way, get it out of your system and put it on to a paper and be able to look at. There's a lot of people that died that never apologized to people. I'm one of them. I was abused by my stepfather. For 12 years. And when I say not just a beating or just something, like, this was perpetual. He never got a chance to apologize. But I took the authority back from him and wrote him a letter, even though he's deceased, and released those feelings. So you have the power to own your destiny and plant greater seeds.
Right. And that's huge, because when you get in there journaling, like you said, you're getting to see it. It's tangible. It's right there. It's on paper. And now you're getting to acknowledge it, right? And you can see the emotion, right? You can see and observe the emotion, but that's the biggest thing. You can observe it, and then you can break it down with the facts, right? And this is how it was. This is what happened. And I can choose to either forgive this person, or I can hold that resentment in, and then that's just going to eat me up. And you have that power to start making that choice. You're creating that gap, right, between that realization and then the action. Yep. So it's like, oh man, that gap that's the most powerful thing I think my life coach and we've talked about is that gap right there, where it's just like, you got to observe that. And that's your chance to make that change and really change the blueprint that you have in your life from, just going that traditional route of what your parents did, that genetic blueprinting as well. And then just of like, now you have that opportunity to change it and change the entire trajectory of not only your life, but your genetic offspring and stuff afterwards, or the people that you interact with afterwards. And it's an amazing thing to be able to see that, to be able to really tell those stories.
Yeah. One of the things I want to circle back to is when I said being on the other side of the equal sign. when I think I was in middle school. You might remember this. They had this theory, and I used to say to myself, "Why am I taking geometry?" Like geometry was just something I couldn't figure out. Like, where am I going to use this? Addition, I know I can add my money up. I know what's going to be in my account. Makes sense. But geometry, like, am I really ever going to use this? And they had this theory called the Pythagorean theorem. And that was like a question. It was like this question that took about 2 to 3 sheets of paper to finish and figure out. Well, one thing God showed me about that one day was it doesn't matter how long the problem is if you have the answer. So if you're on the other side of the equal sign, it negates the potency of the question. So if we're able to say, hey, listen, I know what it is to feel suicidal because I've been through it, but here's the answer. Here's some ways to do it. We take away the potency of the problem.
Right. And so I like that because when you're able to have that answer right there, right, you're on that other side, you're able to also reverse engineer that problem,
yes.
right? And it's like, here's the easiest solutions. Here's the most efficient way to get from where you are now to where I am. So here's, you're just leading your life by example.
Yeah.
And that's huge too, right? Because of the fact that you're taking a lot of time to just implement actions. And so that's really great because now you're able to inspire these people through that action because actions speak way louder than just words, right?
Yes.
Way louder than just our intentions. And I'm not saying intentions aren't powerful because they are. Right? We got to be able to set those intentions. But at the same time, walking that walk, and moving forward in those actions, that's going to be huge.
Definitely huge. Well, and it's powerful. One of the things I would say this is that it starts with a word, like words leads to sentences. Sentences leads to paragraphs. Paragraphs leads to chapters. And chapters leads to books. And I just think it's that easy. It's one of those things where you owe it to yourself to tell your unfiltered story. I've seen so much healing take place in individuals when they were able just to tell their unfiltered story. They've been told to shut up, be quiet, keep it secret. What happens in this home stays in the home. What happens?
That's huge, right?
Yeah,
I've heard that for sure, man.
It stays here.
It
no
stays
matter
in the
how
home.
bad it is.
Right.
And I'm like, no, it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to talk it out and really heal your past. One of the things I had to realize too is that I couldn't go to my future without healing my past.
Right. And that's huge.
That was deep for me.
You gotta be able to heal that past. You got to be able to forgive those instances because a lot of times too, and then also too, I mean, you got to really actually, because there's going to be a lot of times when you look back at your life and there were so many happy times out there, man, and you're going to end up getting depressed because you're sitting here in the present and the present definitely wasn't as good as the past.
Yes.
And now you got to figure out a way to get past that.
Yes.
And it's like, man, you got to be able to forgive yourself for even just kind of thinking that that's not possible again.
Yes.
It's crazy. So for myself, for instance, I'm just I gotta be able to let that stuff go, let the past be in the past, no matter how bad it was, no matter how good it was. I gotta let that stuff be there. I gotta either forgive those instances or just move past the instances where it was amazing, right, and all that different stuff, and keep moving forward with my actions.
Yes.
Keep moving forward with the things that I intend to do.
Yes.
So that's crazy, dude.
Yeah. I always say it like this, man. You remember the age, you look real young, so I don't know. Dapper, but
yes, I love it. I love it.
But back in the day, we had these things, and people might be looking at this or viewing this or hearing this and think about this, and they probably I don't remember this. But we had what they used to call CDs and DVDs, right? And DVDs are really tricky because DVDs did something different from the VHS.
I guess I'm that old. Yeah. I had the DVD player in the TV.
Oh, yeah. Just look at it. And what was dope about it was that when DVDs came out, it changed VHS because VHS was you had to fast forward to get to a spot in the movie.
Right. Yeah, tracking and everything like that.
DVD was tricky because you can press a button and skip to a new scene. So if I didn't know the total layout of the movie, I would just jump in and walk in the room and think that the movie started there, right? And we do that in our life. Let's just go to the good spots. Let's just go, let's skip all of the stuff. Let's get out of the trauma and just, and don't deal with it. But I learned something powerful that just because I fast forward doesn't mean I delete the scenes.
Right. That's huge.
So just because you say, oh, I'm going to be better, I'm not going to be like my father, I'm not going to be like mom, I'm going to move to a new city, a new town, I'm going to get a bank account, it doesn't mean you don't still deal with poverty and the trauma of your past. And so a lot of times we think we need to fix it. That's not what we need to do, but we need to heal from it. We need to recover from it.
Right. And one thing that my life coach personally has, let me know, it's like, yeah, observe those things.
Yeah.
See what they were, learn from them. Like you were saying too, profit from that pain that you had went through in the past and move forward with those lessons. Because if you don't learn from those lessons, they're just going to keep happening over and over again in different forms. You could be as wealthy as possible, but if you didn't learn that lesson from before, it's just going to take on a different shape.
Yes.
And maybe it might even take on a more devastating shape the more value that you have as far as like your things like net worth and stuff like that, right? So like that's huge. So let me ask you this. With that being said, because you provided a perfect illustration there where it's like, you're fast forwarding, but you're not deleting the scenes. How often would you say that you see that happening with your clients when it comes to things like social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest things that my clients come through, and I'm talking about high level, from high level to just entry level, anybody in between, is they don't feel like that story is relevant. And go back to that secret sauce point. I've been through the same thing that somebody else has been through. So what makes my story so important? So it's that self-validation that I have to walk them through, to be able to say, hey, man, your story matters. And even though it's similar, it's not the same as that person down the street. So a lot of times they feel like, even I'm talking about very successful in their business, in their life, and their accomplishments, but they feel that they don't have any validity in their story. So I spend a lot of time trying to really speak value and get them from the mental standpoint to believe. And these are people who are like, multi-million-dollar earners, and some of them don't believe that they're successful enough in their life story. They've achieved a high level of success, but they don't feel like their story is successful. Two different things. I'm successful at work. I'm successful in what I do. I have faith in what I do, but I don't have faith in who I am. I don't feel like I'm good enough.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're battling a lot when it comes to your clients. They're battling a lot with like imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Like they're just like, I don't think I'm good enough.
Yes.
Like, and I can tell you right now, especially anybody, by the way, listening to this podcast, make sure, like, if you want to start a podcast, get out there and start a podcast, right? Like, it's like, just do it. And it doesn't matter whether or not somebody listens to you or not from one area, because trust me, right? There's going to be people that do not listen to this podcast, right? But there's going to be so many more that do listen to this podcast.
Yes.
So your story might not resonate with one group, but it may resonate with another group. And you may, through that resonating group, save somebody's life.
Exactly.
It may change somebody's life from, where they're homeless to where they realize that, hey, man, all I got to do is pick up a microphone and tell my story.
Yes.
And so many people are going to be saved by it, and so many people are going to resonate with it, and so much value and everything is going to come my way just because of the fact that, like, I was able to communicate my story, my personal secret sauce.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that I always look at, the sauce. We know we go to restaurants, we choose our restaurants a lot of times just based on the sauce. Everybody can
In-N-Out,
chicken,
right? In-N-Out, Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
You got, I was just telling you about Fixins down the street. Like, man, yeah, you're right. You choose it by the sauce.
By the sauce. We can have the same chicken. We can have the same neighborhood. We can have totally different sauce. And I always look at that sauce as that solution, your audience, your uniqueness, your creativity, and that's your expertise. So once you're able to do all of those different things together, you create your own secret sauce. One of the biggest things that my clients have a problem with as well is they come to me all the time and say, hey, Dr. Reid, I want to write a bestseller. And I'm like, you're already a bestseller, right? I want to be on, New York Times bestselling list. I said, what does that mean? Right? The validity of you telling your story shouldn't be dependent on how many books you sign. And I say, hey, or how many books you sell. I say to them all the time, become a book, which means you share your life, and out of that leaks the pages. And get self-fulfillment of you telling your true story, whatever it may be, instead of saying, hey, let's look at the leaderboard. Let's see how many books I sold this week, because that presents disappointment. When you don't get the 100 books that you needed or the 2,000, you can reach one person that can reach 1 million people. Go after the one that you are feeling strongly about really end up talking to yourself in general. And so I think once you identify what you need and who you are, you can then sell, you can then move, you can then tell your unadulterated story.
By the way, everyone's going to listen to this podcast.
Everybody.
Right? Everybody's going to listen to this
They
podcast.
don't,
Because this thing is freaking nuts, man. Like, you got to really think about it. Like, you're sitting over here, you're battling this imposter syndrome with a lot of your clients. And, like, honestly, like, what it really comes down to is just get out there, perform the action, do the job, do the deed, and don't be afraid to be honest about the way you feel about the situation.
Yes, sir.
Right? And for even guys like myself, like, trust me, I get out of bed sometimes and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to do great on this podcast or anything like that. I mean, I don't know who I'm going to be talking to, or I'm going to be doing this, or I'm going to be doing that. And there's so many things that can be negative out in the world. It's so amazing to be able to see that you're bringing that positive aspect to everybody's life that you touch, man.
It's amazing. I've been on some calls with just people who played in major stadiums, but they never talked about the molestation. They played with legends like Kobe Bryant. They played, but never talked about the molestation that they've ever dealt with. So we're on the call, man, just, as we're writing their story and crying as men, because they never got to tell their coach, never felt comfortable telling the fans, never got comfortable. But when they were able to tell their true story, it was like a breath of freedom came, and that gave me hope in what I do.
Right.
Yeah.
And that actually gives me a lot of hope in what I do as well, because you're right, man. There's a lot. So right now I actually work, and by the way, I don't know, just say hi to them, by the way. I work with I work with a lot of Native American kids, right? Yes. And right now I work with a specific tribe called the Fort Mojave Indian tribe. We're going to be rolling out a great program. And their podcast is actually called Rescast, right? And it's Mojave Rescast. And so we're going to be actually rolling out this podcast on the reservation, all youth led. The kids are going to be having a great time, and they're doing an entire like rollout on Wednesday this upcoming week, right? And so it's really cool to be able to see that type of stuff and see the kids even be able to say, hey, you know what? Like, let me tell my story. Let me tell you the questions that I have on my mind. So that way you can meet me where I'm at, right? And it's like, you do see these stories that, disappointment, or you see these stories where they're proud of each other, or they're wondering, how to make their parents proud, or make their family proud, or culture proud, or anything like that, right? And it's like, hey man, what is it that's going to help make you proud, right? And so, with that being said, it just is a breath of fresh air to know that there's guys out there like yourself that are helping individuals really break out of that shell, because it's hard, man. It is so hard just to think about the stuff that sometimes people go through, and sometimes, what the detrimental things that could have been in their life and everything. And it's hard for them to break open about that stuff.
It really is.
So what would you say are some of the tips that you give to some of your clients? Obviously, we don't want to give away everything, right? You got to go and see Dr. Reid first and foremost to make sure that you go get the full experience. But what are some of those tips that you give that you would say help to somewhat change people's lives? Yeah,
I always say that, go back to the point I made earlier about it starts with one word. I think the power of one word changes everything, because you can hear so many no's and I give you one yes and change your entire life. So I always tell people, just get one word out. I have people say, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to do. I say, well, talk about how frustrated you are about not being able to express yourself. What? And they'll start writing, but at the end of the day, they're writing. I'll tell them, talk about how frustrating it is for you not to be able to put into words what it is. And as we go along, they're writing. And eventually they start to write about this, and then we move on. So the biggest thing is to write about something, even if you're frustrated. Commit to even writing a word on the page. Even if you write the letter A, you've accomplished more by writing A than not writing a letter A.
Right. Just even one letter, man. That's just enough to get the ball rolling, one foot in front of the next. I remember my life coach actually sent me a questionnaire, right? And that was our first ever meeting together. Sends me a questionnaire, and he goes, fill this questionnaire out. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there, man. I'm just like, how do I do this? And then all of a sudden, 20,000 words later, man, I sent him back my questionnaire, and he's like, I know everything about this guy's life, pretty much, right? Like, I actually was, I was actually gonna throw it in a chat GPT and just be like, "What's wrong with me?" No, I'm just kidding. No, but like, it's crazy because it just started with one word, and I'll admit too, though, you got to find the paradigm that really works for you, right?
Yes.
Like for me, I love being able to talk. I love my voice. I love being able to use my voice to be able to do that stuff. And now that we have so much technology, like dictation machines and stuff like that, like that's really where that came down from, right? And then also too, breaking things down. Like if you need to be able to talk about stuff, break it down, age groups. Like for me, that really helped when my life coach was like, hey, 0 to 5, 6 to 10, and like all those different age groups, what are the significant things that happened? And I was able to like literally spell this out in an afternoon, right? Just by talking and by releasing and being honest, right? That has to be the biggest game changer for myself, is just being honest, right? About everything. Like just honest about everything. Let them know, because then they can meet you where you're at, right? If I try to design, things without honesty, I'm just trying to get you to go in a certain direction, but I'm not being honest with you, it's going to come out eventually, right? Like it's going to come out eventually. People are going to know about it. And all of a sudden, like now you're questioning whether or not you can do this or not do it, right? So honesty that's been the biggest thing for me. So when you're in your coaching sessions, how much are you preaching that honesty aspect?
So transparency. And one of the biggest things I get to is, what if my book offends somebody else, or you're trying to protect? And I'm like, you're either going to tell your story at the time to be from or not. This is your story. Now we can embellish, we can, cover, we can be creative in how we list it out. But at the end of the day, that's your story. That's your perspective. And I even tell them sometimes, one tip that you can get off of this is I tell people, say, hey, based on your true account, this is basically my truth. And only that this is how I viewed the situation. And then again, I always tell them too, be transparent with yourself. If you're not going to be true with who you are, your readers are going to feel that. If you're filtering, they're going to be like, hey, it's going to come across unauthentic. It's going to come across like it's not real. And so I think the biggest thing is writing levels too. That's another point, writing levels. Maybe you're not ready to tell about everything that happened to you. Start with just the beginning. You don't have to finish. That's one point. I have a quote that says, you don't have to finish to be finished.
That's huge.
It's huge.
That's huge, because a lot of people, they'll be like, well, I can't start because I can't see the end. And if I can't see the end, then I don't know where I'm going.
Bro,
and that's one of the biggest fears, because it's like, if I don't know where I'm going, I don't know where I'm landing, then, it's kind of just like that self-preservation, right? You're just like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm landing, so I'm not going to attempt it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to take that risk, man. It's like jumping off a waterfall. You don't know what's under that water. But, hey, man, it's either going to be a fun time or you're going to be gone. Right? but, yeah, I mean, like, it's a legit fear that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
Dr. Reid, like, let's jump into it, man, because you got all this stuff. You got tons of solutions, man. I'm loving this conversation, because you are the solution consultant right here, right in front of me. And so now you have a conference coming up.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about that conference, what it's going to be doing, who you're going to be helping, where's it going to be. Let's jump into that, man.
Man, I'm excited about it. I always say that I had so many solutions because I had so many problems. So at the end of the day, I found myself just really focusing on those. And one of the biggest things that we got going now is, as you can see on my shirt, is MUD. And MUD is an acronym for Men Under Divine Dominion. And I feel like the same solutions to my problems, and I think the same solutions to men problems, is found in the same place they messed up. A lot of times we look for a solution sometimes outside of where we messed up. But I believe in the mud of our life, the muddy, mundane places, is where the solutions lay. I always say that your failure is really your success in reverse. Let me say that again. Your failure is your success in reverse. If you just tweak it, for example, you can actually come out the other side of it. So MUD is going to be a movement. It's a conference. It's actually going to kind of commemorate 10 years of what we call the He-Men's Conference. The He-Men's Conference is a movement for men. So started out in 2013, and we're coming back to it with the MUD He-Men's Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, September 29th through the 30th. And this is going to be a gathering of men. I'm grabbing men from all across the globe, people coming from Canada, people coming from parts of Africa, people coming from just the States. I got my boy in the house, the founder of Give Soap. You know him as Victor Angel, right? He's coming, hitting the stage, and I'm so excited to have him be a part of it because it's going to be life-changing, his story, his message, and how we met. We met serving. And so this guy, I'm excited about him being a part of the conference to really talk about service and uniqueness. But we have almost like a combination of business, marketplace, ministry, but it's going to be a men's only event. We're closing the door. It's all men coming in to sit around fireside chat. We're bringing actors. We're bringing people in entertainment. We're bringing worship leaders. We're bringing people who own companies together to sit down and talk about what's behind the behind, right? The behind the scenes. So it's 2 power-packed full days of where we're going to just be really talking about real issues.
That's huge because, like we had mentioned before, as men, we don't really have a lot of platforms to where we can come together and really just be able to, find that solace in each other, right?
Yes.
And it's like, that's so refreshing because I can tell you right now, like even going out and serving with Victor and Give Soap and going out to the homeless communities and washing people's feet and stuff, that's huge. And and a guy like Victor, right, being able to bring that out of myself, being able to go down there and wash people's feet and humble myself and look at these different situations, like that was massive. Right. And then being able to actually have an outlet to be able to talk to, be able to converse with and share those feelings and stuff like that. Because I've talked with Vic about a lot of stuff from, my own personal relationships to, money issues or anything like that. Right. And those types of things, right, are hard a lot of times for men to be able to talk about, mainly because of the fact that we're looked at as always having the solution.
Yes. And that's one of the things that we're encouraging men to do is bring your mud. Think about it. We always want to cover it up. Like, okay, I don't want to hear, it's great. We want to hear about success stories, but I'm not concerned about how successful you are. I'm even bringing my baggage that I still deal with because people see the doctor, they see the different things, but I still got stuff that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I'm telling people, hey, this is going to be an environment where you can bring your mud. You can bring your stuff that you're going through.
Huge.
You don't have to patch yourself up.
Bring your mud, man. Bring your mud. Because you're right. Like it's like you gotta be able to sit there and really look at face to face and be like, yeah, man, I'm a real person. I deal with problems. I got issues. I got situations where I don't want to get up in the morning. I don't want to deal with that. And a lot of people, like we mentioned before, we're always being looked at to have the solution. And it's like sometimes I don't have the solution to the problem. And I got to look back to the previous problems, right? I got to look to the mud and try to figure out how to recalibrate that situation.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I've been doing some research on, and I got a special surprise at the conference, but one of the things I've been writing about is about how mud is actually certain parts of the nutrients inside of the mud is actually vital to our existence. Like we always talk about getting clean, but there's a part of having dirt on you that's normal. For example, we all are made of dirt and clay. And when we die, we're definitely going to go back to that.
Going back.
And I've had a white shirt on. I'm sure you have, and been sweating. And what is it? No matter what color your skin, you look at the neck of it, it's dirt.
Dude, you got that ring around the collar?
Ring around the collar.
Ring around the
you
collar.
can't take a shower one time and just be straight.
No, not at all, man.
Same thing with life. Like you can't just be like, I'm straight, I got up. And it is something that I want to encourage men to do. Like, hey, bring your mud, man. Bring your baggage. Because we need a safe space. I think a lot of times we will get over our trauma, our addictions, if we just say, hey, you know what? Here's mine. You know what that does for another brother to be able to say, oh, wow, you're going through that too? I thought I was the only one.
Yeah, and then also, too, it gives you that platform where you guys can both work it out together. Yeah. Because we need to realize that sometimes we don't have the answers to the problem. Yes. And we got to be open about it to be able to have that conversation, to be able to really reach out and and touch base with other people that are having those like similar situations, and really just, you just got to surrender to it, man. And that's the biggest thing. It's like, you just got to be able to say, hey, you know what? I can't handle it today.
Yeah.
I need someone else to help me lift this weight.
Yeah. I'm working on a book, right? I'm letting the cat out of the bag here. I haven't told anybody. It's called Manhandle Mud Edition, right? And one of the things I'm working with my mentor on is one of the things that I looked at was 13 words that every man should master. And a lot of those words have the root man in it. So one of the words is manure. We look at manure, a lot of people, because it's smelly, is thinking, I don't want to deal with manure, but how many of you know the manure is the number one fertilizer in the world?
Right. Personally, I'm from the country, so I love the smell of manure. I absolutely love driving through the fields, man. You know why? Because it just signifies that new growth, like you were saying.
Wow.
Right? Like it's like it's a signal of new growth. You know that these plants are going to be growing, and not only do you know the plants are going to be growing, but the plants that are going to grow, majority of the time, I grew up in a town that like grows alfalfa and stuff like that, right, and hay. So you know that those plants are going to go feed the horses, the cattle, all that different stuff, right, that you may or may not later consume, that are going to help you out in the long run. So it's like, it's just that circle of life, man, that's going on right there. And like you said, it just started with manure. It might be smelly, it might be stinky, it might be dirty, but it's like number one fertilizer in the world.
So we'd say that what we've been through as men that smelt bad could also be working for our good.
It could be, because like honestly, right, like you kind of have to have that contrast, right? Like you have to have the bad in order to have the good. Otherwise, just imagine it like this, right? If you had nothing but good, like you wouldn't have anything to contrast to like know that is good. Yeah. Right. So you'd be just sitting there like, oh yeah, it's just the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. But rather now, because of the fact that I have the bad, I can appreciate even more the good. Right. Like, and also too, I can appreciate the bad moments as well, because they're going to get me to that good. They're going to provide that area of momentum for me to get there.
Yeah. One of the things that got me is this part. Manure in my hand would just be a smelly problem. But manure in a farmer's hand could be multi-millions.
That's huge, because that's really going back to like where you're valued, right? Like, I mean, you see all these reels and everything like that on Instagram, and it's like, oh, you take a car to a car dealer, they're going to give you one thing. You take a car to a pawn shop, they'll maybe give you less. You take a car to a collector, they may give you $100,000 for it, right? But the car dealer was only going to give you like $5,000. But it's just a matter of like who's going to value it, who knows how to turn it into something that's going to be profitable. It's not a problem for them or anything like that they can't solve. It's kind of like baseball cards, man. Like, right? You got baseball cards. You got these guys with, rookie cards and everything like that. It might be like, I don't even know who that is. Or you'll find somebody that, loves Pete Rose or loves, Babe Ruth or something like that. And all of a sudden they're like, yep, I'll take that. And I'll pay you $10,000 for that card. Right. And it's like you have to find out where you're valued. And I think that's really cool that your conference is bringing all these men together from, faith, business, just general men and, that are coming in there with their baggage, and you're encouraging them to bring their baggage. Yes. That's the best part, because a lot of times, it's not encouraged to bring your baggage. Right. And you're sitting here, you're like, bring your baggage to me. I want to help you find the solution within the rest of everybody else's mud as well.
Yeah, exactly, because I know there'll be people that help each other, and there'll be people that kind of grow with each other. So we're extending that right now. We've been, $97. Think about this. 2 Power Pack days.
Dude, you're doing it for $97? $97, and I can go find solutions?
Yes.
That's awesome.
$97.
I'm sorry to interrupt you right there, man. Jump into it more. So for $97, what are you getting?
$97, you're getting all access 2 full days. And when I say 2 full days, I'm thinking, I'm letting you know that it's 2 full days. So this conference will be morning from fitness to learning about dealing with wounds and to deal with warfare, to just hear from men who have been battle tested that's going to be showing their wounds, to interactive workshops. So it's going to be one of those things where it's not going to just be a lecture. Lecture is going to also be a circle rather than a line, a group of men sharing in a safe and confidential environment. There'll be counselors on hand. There'll be people that can actually walk you through the process after the conference. So you get 2 full days, man, of just bonding, networking, and fellowship. So we're going to be doing some things that's going to really help you grow. Every time I've went somewhere and provided these events, people have actually catapulted in their life and business. So 2 full days, you get the takeaways is going to be real talk, dialogue. We're going to eat and fellowship. So just 2 full power pack days of that. You're going to hear from the best of the best. Men that like Victor Angels is going to be there. You're going to be hearing from actors. If you're in the entertainment field, I brought even actors in who play major roles in even on Amazon and have their own movies out in production. You're going to hear from movie directors. You're going to hear from athletes. Former NFL players are going to be there sharing how he transitioned to now selling life insurance for making millions of dollars. You're going to hear from a Wall Street broker who lost $54 million, bro. 54 million stacks on Wall Street.
That's wild, dude.
And still now relentlessly serves the Lord, but still deals with that. Still battling to get back, right? To move into a frequency. We're going to talk about morning and evening routines. It's so vital. We're going to have Jose Escobar talking about morning and evening routines. We're going to hear from a Division I gentleman who was on his way to the NFL and found out, got up one day and could not move because he discovered he had MS.
That's a tough one right there, bro.
He's, African American at the time, only dude other than Montel Williams that he knew about who had MS. So he talked about his whole life journey. His father was a Hall of Famer, and he's now. So you're gonna have real stories of real men that's going to really talk about their addiction and pastors who went through addiction, people who went through addiction. So it's like I can go on and on, but just hearing the stories, the interactive, and the fellowship is going to be so important to be able to have that fellowship and, camaraderie amongst brothers in a safe space is going to be crazy bananas. It's going to be crazy. I'm excited about it. And every time we've done this, it's kind of sparked to do something else. So they get the 2 full days. College students can enter free. We even made it free for college students.
That's awesome.
Like literally free. Like if you're a college or high school student, under the sound of my voice, if you can prove it with an ID, school ID, that's all we need. 2023. Thank you, Agent. 2023.
Yeah, right? 2023.
No coming down. You got a full beard, gray hair.
Coming in hot, looking like Albus Dumbledore over here from Harry Potter. I got my college degree in like 1812.
Well, I'm still there. I'm photoshopping. No, we're going to be providing some validation, but you'll be able to get into this event free.
That's
and don't
huge.
let money stop you. Like you see the website. There's a place to contact on the website. We've already said people step up. We say we'll sponsor somebody's way there. So if money's an issue for you,
it's like, dude, if money's an issue for you and you end up getting to Atlanta, Georgia, to the doors, and you're like, I want to be there, it's like not an issue.
You're male. It's a male-only event. We will have female vendors on the outside, but in the inside, whole men of it. You're a male. You're a man. You are allowed in, and so those are where we are, man, and it's going to be phenomenal. Everything's on that site.
That's huge.
Then we have a buy one get one free, so you can actually buy one ticket at $197. You'll get 2 tickets of admission.
You know what? If you're going and you're by yourself, you buy one get one free. It's like, dude, reach out and sponsor somebody.
Bring somebody.
Help someone.
Bring a brother. Bring an uncle.
Bring a brother.
Bring an Uber driver.
Bring an Uber driver, man. Like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, it's serious. Like, it's like, hey, extend that love because you mentioned something very briefly. I just heard it. The frequency. It's like you get on that frequency, man. Get on that frequency of giving from within, right? Because it's like once you're on that frequency, and I love talking about frequencies, man. I love it because it's like once you're on that frequency and you start resonating with people around you that are on that similar frequency, Oh, the possibilities are endless. I remember when I very first started this podcast, right? I remember I was like, I just want to start a podcast where I ask people what makes them happy about what they do. And then met a guy at a 3-year-old's birthday party that ended up introducing me to another business owner. And then I already had known Victor because we had lived at the same apartment complex, you know, like, and it was just like really cool. Our dogs, that's how we really met, right? It was our dogs. But we started talking, and then Victor actually introduced me to a couple more people that were involved with podcasts, like the Unusual Friends podcast and stuff. And they were able to film one of my episodes and get me, like, it was crazy. Like the amount of like people that just get involved with you when you start maintaining that frequency. But that's the other thing too. You got to maintain that frequency. You got to remember to kind of like reach into it, kind of dive into it, be thankful for it, be grateful for that situation. So, I mean, like with that being said, what would you say that like you're grateful for as far as like, and where's your energetic frequency at right now?
But man, it is all about serving. You know, it's really one of those things where people say that is very key and trendy now, being a servant leader. I'm a servant leader, but I think you lead by serving, and serving just is. It's not about what's said. What people see is what happens behind the scenes. And my heart for this event is still a walk of faith to cover the cost, to cover this different things. But I'm not worried about it. I believe that if you serve, people will serve. And so what I'm grateful for is meeting people like Victor, meeting people like you, being on this podcast. And I wouldn't have been here except I was wanting to go serve. And I met Angel at another event serving, and I was almost not going to go because it was a high limit to serve. I ended up paying thousands of dollars just to be in the room. All right? And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do all this. But then I saw my daughter, who her eyes lit up because it was an entrepreneurial kind of event. And she was excited about going. I was like, okay, what's $5,000 to see my daughter happy? You know, and that's why I look at this whole men thing. What's the $97 ticket? What you're gonna get is so much value, I promise you. And the biggest thing is I was telling Victor this the other day. One of the hardest things to deal with men with, and to deal with an event like this, is there's no shiny carrot. Like, I don't have anything to say, hey, when you come to this, you're gonna make 6 figures tomorrow, or your pain's gonna go away in a day, or you're going to feel better. But what I will tell you, you'll be in an environment for change. You'll be around some positive men that's going to really share and pour into you, or will give you your money back. No, that's no question. If you come to that conference and you say, man, this was a waste of my time.
That's huge right there, man. That's like,
your money back.
Because like I won't even touch on that per se, right? Even though that's extremely important because you're putting your money where your mouth is, kind of thing, right? But what you're pretty much putting out there is like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to some farmers that know what to do with the manure that you got right now.
Fire.
You got the baggage, you got the manure coming in. It stinks, man. It smells real bad, but you know what? It ain't nothing that we can't, you know, turn into some agricultural gold for the most part, right? And help with the trajectory of your life. Now, is farming a tried and true method and nothing ever goes wrong or anything like that? Absolutely not, right? There's, you know, times where the seasons are bad and stuff like that. And that's kind of an illustration of life as well, because it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe things don't work out, or maybe things don't work out the way that you expect them to work out. And then all of a sudden what ends up happening is that they end up going on a different trajectory, right? You end up growing a different crop.
Yes.
And then that becomes like super beneficial within your life.
Yes. Perfect.
That's wild, man. That's crazy.
That's
so cool. So as far as like, you know, what is it? Let me ask you this. What is it in your life that really makes you happy?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that may sound cliche is that I'm walking in my divine purpose. I never would have thought I'd be doing the things that I'm doing now. You know, I didn't set out to be a writing coach, a motivational speaker, or none of those things. But doing them brought a lot of fulfillment. I think the fulfillment of your destiny is when your purpose and your destiny marry each other. And I'll explain that. Purpose is what your function is, what you're created to do. But your destiny is like a destination. Another way I'll put it is your purpose is like the passport, but then the destination is where you're going.
Okay.
So once you can have the passport, which is your purpose, what's your function, or what you have the authorization to do by God, because God is giving you this purpose. Because when you walk into your purpose, you don't have to try. So it's easy, for example, Angel to wash people's feet because that's his purpose. Somebody's like, I can't do that. Well, it's not your purpose.
It's just not your purpose, yeah.
But it may be your purpose to fund his purpose, right? And your destination is seeing that person experiencing homelessness feel appreciated, feeling served is the destiny, right? And so all of us in this room right now could be going to the same place overseas, and all of us can have the passport. But I can't go on your passport, even though we have the same destination.
That's actually a great way to illustrate it, right? Because it's like, yeah, we might all be going to the same spot, but if I try to use your passport, it ain't going to work.
It ain't work.
Right. And if you don't want to wash people's feet, you're going to go down there and you're just going to feel weird. You're going to feel disgusted or something like that, and it's just not going to work. It's going to put you on a weird frequency, and like you're not going to want to. It's just not going to be good for you. It's going to be more so detrimental to your life, right? But when you find that purpose, and you don't have to like I love this. Like what I do right now, I love this, man. Like this is fun that I get to have the opportunity to learn about individuals like yourself, like Victor, like Lino, like everybody that's been involved with all this stuff. Like it's amazing just to be able to do this, right?
Yeah.
And it's just no effort, no extraneous effort, right?
Yes.
Like there's effort obviously put into it, and you love what you do, so of course you're going to put that effort there, but it's not like you're going against the grain. You're going with the flow, man. I love it because especially being Native American myself, I'm like, and I live on the Colorado River, and I'm just like, man, I get to flow in this river, right, of life, and it's awesome to be able to see that and to see you doing it too.
Yeah.
And the way that you illustrate it, you serve, and by you serving, other people are going to be serving right behind you because you're leading by that example. And it's just effortless for you, man.
Yes.
And it's good to see that. And it's good to see that massive smile on your face as you talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, it's huge. But yeah, man, like, as far as, throwing those things out there, like, what are some of the other things that you want the audience to know, the people that this podcast right now is going to be resonating with, and all your viewers to know as they move forward towards this conference in September?
Yeah, which means that they don't have to do it alone. I think that end of the day is you come in this atmosphere. We serve a great God, right? Who, this is the thing that's powerful that I want every man to zoom in on, is as I was looking at Christ, his life, and realized that he did something very, very powerful that I think people overlook. We talk about the cross and the crucifixion, but we overlook the scars. This is God who could have came back and took all of the scars away, right? But he left the scars there. Why did he leave the scars there? As a GPS system to help us navigate that even God has scars. What about you, bro? I mean, it's a deep thing. What about you? God still has scars, nails in his hands, nails in his feet. Why? Because he knew that Thomas would come along. He knew that we would come along and be like, we don't know what I'm going through. Oh, yes, I do. I have these particular scars. And so I think that this is an environment where we're going to see one of the things God gave me was 9 W's. I don't have time to go over all of the 9 W's. But he woke me up one day and started talking to me about W-9s. And if you're in the real estate field or, property field, that's a title document. And I started to really realize that. He said, "What?" He said, men, we're God's property. And so from that standpoint, you got to know your W-9s. These are the 9 areas that men focus: women, wounds, warfare, worship, world, how we dwell in the world, weaknesses, And so those are the things that they can come and take away with identifying those things, identifying what our struggles are, addressing them, finding solutions, and feeling comfortable in who we are and moving to the next level, getting a charge. I know there's going to be men that connect with Angel at that particular event. They're going to connect. I don't have all of the answers, and bringing everybody to the table, people will connect with you at that event because of what you do. Not even so much of, anything, just because of your occupation, or just because, hey, we vibe, or whatever it is, and creating that environment to realize that it's not my event. I tell people all the time, you may see me out there front, but it's not my event at all. It's our event. So I want people looking on, you make the event. And when you come and you bring your energy, you bring your time, you bring your skill, you bring your truth, it's going to really fuel what's going to happen here. And so my biggest thing about that is that let's create an environment for change.
That's huge, man. And I want to just say, like you said, you bring your energy. Like, it's not your event in particular. You may be running it, you may be out in front, you may be putting everybody together, but overall, the audience, the people that are going, the people that are contributing their mud, that's going to be what makes the event. That's going to be what makes the change, and that's what's going to be making it huge. So, you know what, man, as we wrap it up right now, I just want to say thank you again for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's been amazing to be able to talk to you about this stuff. I want to leave a little bit left, right, for our next podcast, because it's going to be sick. But, overall, I just want to say thank you, because, the stuff that you're doing and the light that you're bringing into the world, into this men's conference, into all these men's lives, it's huge. And, on behalf of all the men out there, like, thank you for providing that safe space and really being able to, like, help us to open up and bring our mud to the table, so that way we can all help each other turn that manure into, like, this amazing fertilizer that's going to help us all grow.
Man, appreciate it, man.
So, and then once again, guys, I just want to say thank you again to Kingdom Keys, and also to Flare Encounters, Kingdom Keys and Flare Encounters, for providing us this space, the setup. Yes, and then also I want to thank Give Soap, where they're matching every purchase with a purpose, getting out there into the field, helping people. Thanking my boy Victor Angel, who's just been an amazing person to be involved with. And once again, happy birthday, man. This is great.
Happy birthday, bro.
And then also, too, I just want to say thank you again to Dr. Oliver T. Reid for being here, and your business. I Am a Solutions Consulting Firm, and just kind of just sharing what Mud is going to be about here in September. Make sure you're getting out there to the event. And again, Doctor, when is that event again? Just throw it out there.
It's going to be September 29th through the 30th at the legendary Fort Hall in Atlanta, Georgia. You go to www.hemensconference.com. That's www.hemensconference.com. Just like the monitor in the back of me, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right, guys. And this has been The Collective. Thank you again for joining us. It's your boy Jacobo, Dr. Oliver T. Reid, and for everybody that's been able to help us out, thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.